pleasant good morning to everyone, and welcome once again to another edition of the Carlos Brown Show, heard exclusively right here on the Open Mic Broadcast Network and Spreaker.com. Today's guest menu looks simply like this. He is the voice of the Edward Waters College Radio Network, Joshua Jackson. He'll join me in hour number one, about 10:20-ish. Following Joshua Jackson will be a former Southern University player who was in the first recruiting class of Coach Pete Richardson. He'll join me to talk about what Coach Richardson has meant in his life as both a student, an athlete, and as a man. He's an attorney now, big-time attorney. I guess I can say it that way. Carlos Leach. He'll join me talking Coach Richardson and the Pete Richardson Classic, which is today. In hour number two, Charles Edmond of the Alcorn State Radio Network joins me in the SWAC football report. And then finally, after Charles Edmond, Brandon B.J. Jones of HBCU Game Day. He'll join me talking Black college football. I'll begin with Southern University football. Last week, on the air, game was 11 o'clock Central Standard Time. Football game. Southern University, two big plays in the drive. First, received the opening kickoff, goes straight down the field, and they score to take a 7-0 lead. Well, fast forward at halftime, 27-17. You could say at that point, they've accomplished a couple of things. They've been able to score some points. No turnovers at that point. None for the game. And they're within striking distance. But it is what it is. You're playing up an FBS collegiate football team, Southern and FCS. In the second half, Jaguars were held to only 15 yards of total offense. The only score came when Lewis, with a strip recovery, and he went the distance, and the defense scored 7 points. Memphis quarterback White finished 17 of 21 for 337 yards. Ladarius Skelton for Southern University ran for 75 yards. He went 7 of 15 passing for 86 yards and a touchdown to tight end Jeremiah Houston. Memphis outgained Southern 575 yards to 258. But as I stated a second ago, some positives to build on. You're playing up. You're going to get worn down in the second half. The Jaguars got off to the good start. Some things that they still have to work on, and it's a work in progress, but time is of the essence. Now, punting, special teams, on the back end, their two starting cornerbacks still have not played. They have some depth there, but on the back end, they've got to do some work. But no turnovers, and that's a good thing. And you're to the point now, the Pete Richardson Classic today, Edward Waters College, then you're at the point now you've got to get ready for conference play. But before then, next week, and I've stated the last couple of weeks that it's a benchmark game for Southern University. Next week on the road, that will be the third road game out of 4 at FAMU. Then the following week on the road in the conference opener, University of Arkansas Pine Bluff, which we will talk about in hour number 2 a little bit more. They seem to have improved a great deal in 1 year. So some benchmarks that will be met. They got some benchmarks, a statement, and maybe that may be a strong term to use, a statement game, but maybe some benchmark games today in the conference as well. We'll talk a little bit more about that. One being McNeese and Alcorn State, and then Prairie View and Nickel State. It's that Southland SWAC matchups We'll also talk about a big one last week that didn't get a lot of conversation, but another team that seems to have improved, Mississippi Valley State and Lamar in hour number 2. So some benchmark games today, next week, and then a good bulk of the teams starting conference play. You've had some teams have already started conference play. So ultimately, that is the goal, to win your conference, win the SWAC football championship, and go on to the Celebration Bowl. But me personally, I look at these non-conference games, particularly with another FCS members. Southern started out the season with McNeese, losing 34-28, 5 turnovers, did them in. You had an opportunity to win the football game still. You thought that they would win. So these are some important matchups coming up today in the next couple of weeks. And then, once again, it is conference play starting. Let me say good morning. The man of many words, many thoughts, Dr. Michael Prince. Good morning to you, sir.
Well, good morning, my brother. I don't know how to take that introduction today. How you doing, man?
I think you should take it. Well, I'm doing well. Thank God there is a God when you wake up every morning.
Amen to that.
Some didn't. Some did. But take it in a positive way. A man of many words and wisdom. Let me add wisdom to it.
Okay, I feel better about that.
Would that make you feel a little bit better?
That makes me feel a little bit better. I'm ready to roll now. Bring it on. How you doing?
Yeah. Well, I'm doing all right. Some a Pete Richardson classic. I'm going to have a former player to talk about what Coach Richardson meant to Southern University, but not only Southern University, but college football, and this conference. He still he looks great. Works out, and I tried my best to get him, but just a little bit outside. It was called the ball.
I do understand.
Yeah. I had one of the former players.
We're going to give you an A for effort, though. How about that?
Yeah, A for effort. But I wanted to get him in.
Well,
I was close.
Maybe you can get him as a residual where it's not as hot, and you can get him so he can kind of reflect on what the day means to him, the result of the game, and then possibly, if you allow me to add this, adding a little respect to that classic, not knocking down the opponent today, but make it a must-see contest. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's an event, activities along with it, and I think for next year you should be working on it now, as we speak. And I'll be honest, I've talked to many people. It would surely be nice to get Winston-Salem State.
Yes.
At the Pete Richardson Classic.
Absolutely.
ASAP.
Absolutely.
But no disrespect to Edward Waters College, because I'm going to have the voice of the EWC radio network coming on in about 12, 13 minutes. So you can't take any opponent lightly.
No, you cannot. And like you say, it's no diss to Edward Waters. And congratulations to them on their promotion, because they're going to be a part of the SIAC coming up real soon. But
in transition.
Yeah, they're in transition.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not a FAMU.
No. Hey, Southern takes on them next week.
I understand.
Which is going to be a lot of history to that game.
Right. A lot of history, a lot of emotion, a lot of passion.
Mm-hmm. I would agree with that. I've witnessed 2 games. Well, 1, 2, 3, 4 in person. I almost feel about FAMU as I feel about Jackson State. It's close.
We have the record to state that. We have the evidence of that, sir. There's no doubt about that at all.
And orange and green colors are enough to get me fighting mad. But anyway,
That's enough to get anybody fighting mad, though, isn't
Yeah, they're also interesting colors, to say the least.
it?
They clash violently to me. But with that being said, that's next week. That'll take care of next week in itself. But with that being said, some interesting games. Some teams have not tasted the victory yet. I know one team should taste victory today. There are some teams that have tasted victory, but still there's a question marks. So, who is the surprise team so far? And let me just say this. It is still early. A lot of people, we're just emotional people. I'm emotional myself. UAPB, big win.
Absolutely.
Mississippi Valley State had it.
Yes.
In the grasp of their fingers, and it got away from them. Most improved. And you give credit where credit is due. But now, do not get so emotional that your common sense is thrown out of the window. It's still early, and there's still a lot of games left to be played. This race will have twists and turns throughout the season, and at the end of the day, we'll see who wins it all. We know who's predicted to win it.
Yeah.
But this season so far has been very interesting so far. I know you have to agree with that one.
Oh, I agree with you totally. And before we get any further, I don't want to say I told you so, but I did make mention more than once that I thought Mississippi Valley was probably going to be one of the most improved teams. I didn't say they was going to win it all or anything like that, but I just thought they would be a very improved program under Coach Vince Dancy. I got to admit that I'm surprised to a degree on Pine Bluff's out the gate success thus far. And in your defense, A&M is who you thought they were until they prove otherwise.
Well, yeah. And I got to be very careful here.
Uh-oh.
They have potential, but sometimes potential is just that until you get it done. So they still have the rest of the football season to kind of get back in my good graces. I'll put it that way.
Okay.
I still think they're a team that's a couple of years away, but I will admit I'm probably in the minority based on just, talking to different people and what they thought, tremendous quarterback, running back, flamboyant wide receiver. But still, my question marks were in the O-line and the D-line, and I still stand by that. And so they still have an opportunity to, prove some people wrong who feel that they're not there just yet.
What would it take for you? I know you said the O-line and the defensive line. Is that the only question mark that you have for that program right now?
Yeah, they've got a very good coach. But to answer your question, yeah, based on last year, and then beating the higher teams in the conference, which has been predicted to be Grambling State, Alcorn, Southern, beat the heavyweights, and then that's a start, and beat them consistently.
I got you. They're
now,
contender.
I also feel the same way about Prairie View. You remember? I put them in the same category.
Yes, you have.
They both were picked second, and they still have an opportunity to do that or better. So the proof is in the pudding as we go through this season.
Absolutely. And I said I misspoke. I said contender, but they're not contenders. They're pretenders until they can prove that they're contenders in your eyes, right?
Well, Valley has Alcorn State coming up pretty shortly.
Yes.
But to me, even though they've lost, they have improved. They've taken the fight to teams. Like Lamar last week. I'm tuning into the last part of the game, and I'm like, boy, hey, Valley can get it done. Hey, it looks like they've gotten a victory over a Southland team.
Which is far and few in between for the SWAC throughout the conference from top to bottom.
Well, yeah. McNeese is 13-0 against the Southwestern Athletic Conference, albeit a lot of their victories came, I think, in their better days as a program when they were going deep in the, at the time, we called them 1AA playoffs. So Alcorn has some players that are not playing. I got a chance to listen a little bit of the Fred McNair radio show, his coach's show, and it seems like they're going to probably keep those players out to get ready for the following week,
yes.
Which is against Prairie View.
Yes.
And a conference.
I was going to say conference opener.
Yeah. So, well, at least for Alcorn.
Right.
So,
and
it's an opportunity to look at those games.
You can't blame them neither. That's a smart move on Coach McNair, if you're asking me.
Yeah, because if they were healthy, of course they would play. And we'll get the latest from Charles Edmond on who's out and who has the possibility of coming back and playing today. But I don't know. Maybe it's just me, and I've talked to some fans who could care less playing the McNeese and Nicholls State. But to me, it's for recruiting, because you're kind of recruiting the same players for the most part. And those games, I just look at them critically. So with that being said, I expect outstanding efforts from Prairie View and Alcorn State tonight.
Well, that would make two of us, sir. That would definitely make two of us. And I am very, very, as they would say, caution to the wind on behalf of Prairie View. There's some rumbling in the camps. You know, the old saying, where there's smoke, there's fire. And is
there always rumblings at Prairie View?
I'm not going to say.
Or is it something that rumblings go on at each institutions, and they just have to deal with it throughout the season, and then even during the non-season?
Well, there are going to always be murmurs, but murmurs can turn into rumblings. And when murmurs turn into rumblings, that's when you got to at least say, hey, there could be something bigger than just murmurs, if that makes any sense. Because if you're effectively doing your job, and I don't care what it is, coaching, teaching, whatever, if you're consistent across the board of being a hard-nosed, fair individual, you're going to always ruffle some feathers. That's part of the package, right? Mm-hmm. But that's where the murmuring is. But when you start having the grumblings and the uneasiness, you know, that's that buzzword for grambling, that uneasiness, then you gotta look a little deeper. You know, because let's be honest, it's never as bad as it seems, nor is never as good as it seems neither. And there's a balance in between. And a lot of us, we say we want the truth and we keep it 100 with us, but then when you keep it 100, then they have a problem with that. They're going like, what's going on? Why you hating on us? No, it's called balance. And you got to have balance in life.
Well, hopefully they can be successful tonight against Nicholls State, Alcorn, and McNeese. In my opinion, the games of the week in the conference. But there are going to be other games we're going to discuss as well and talk about, so we won't forget about anybody. As we close out this first segment, Southern 0-2 on the season. They dropped a 55-24 decision to the University of Memphis, who, by the way, last year was the fourth-rated offense in the country. The Tigers moved to 2-0 on the season, leading 27-17 at halftime. 21 third-quarter points, and held the Jaguars on a 15 yards total offense in the second half. One thing I was telling as we get ready to take this time out, a Southern alum, no disrespect, but you want play a more talented team the rest of the season as Memphis, of course, because they're FBS. But you still got to come out and work and improve. And your conference foes, they know you well.
Right.
You know, and so they may know something that other schools may not. Can't change the McNeese game. It's over. That one hurts because you were the better team, but it didn't reflect that on the scoreboard. You know, 5 turnovers. You played up. Now you're playing down this week in NAIA school, but which, hey, to me, they would be undefeated, and I look at them as the world champs. Literally. And come out and take care of business and then get ready for the conference. So with that being said, going to tell you a little bit more about Edward Waters College. Next, the voice of the Edward Waters College Radio Network, Joshua Jackson, will join me next, previewing a little bit of Edward Waters and taking on Southern. I'm sure they're excited. And let me say this. I think they will be so fired up. Local player for them is from the state of Louisiana, Lafayette, Louisiana. He's got a whole lot of family members. I think they're going to come out and want to represent themselves well. We'll hear about EWC next. You're listening to the Carlos Brown Show on the Open Mic Broadcast Network and Spreaker.com.
One voice. It can get the point across, but it only carries so far. Add a voice. It's richer, louder, but that has limits too. Add a third voice. It's even more powerful. Add another, and another, and many, many more. And we are stronger than ever. That's the power of a community coalition. They help community groups, faith groups, civic organizations, PTAs, employers, and many others in your community organize their resources and focus them where they're needed most, like fighting to keep kids away from drugs. Ask a group that you belong to if they should belong to a community coalition. It's easy to get involved. Visit helpyourcommunity.org and they'll tell you exactly how your group can help. That's helpyourcommunity.org, because you get more when we get together. Brought to you by the Office of National Drug Control Policy and the Ad Council.
Are you looking for an affordable way to increase your business? Let the Open Mic Broadcast Network lead the way. For a customized, affordable ad campaign, call 832-213-8824. Are you one of the many Americans that deal with the effects of diabetes? Diva Skin Conditioner could be the remedy that you need. Diva Skin Conditioner is a formulation that was designed with you in mind. Diva Skin Conditioner comes with a money-back guarantee. That's how confident they are in their product. For more information, visit divafeet.com. That's D-I-V-A-H, feet.com. Or you can speak with a representative by dialing 903-270-0026.
Welcome back to this week's edition of the Carlos Brown Show, heard exclusively right here on the Open Mic Broadcast Network and Spreaker.com. Going to visit with the voice of the Edward Waters College Radio Network, none other than Joshua Jackson. Joshua, good morning to you, sir, and welcome to Louisiana.
Thank you very much. Great to be on with you guys. How are you guys doing this morning?
Doing all right, sir. How about yourself?
Not too bad. Actually sitting on the banks of the mighty Mississippi right now. So just enjoying this beautiful Baton Rouge weather, and I'm looking forward to a big football game here tonight.
Well, I understand that. That river was about 6 or 7 feet higher about a couple of weeks ago. And I know it's hot in Jacksonville, but boy, the humidity here. But I'm sure you're accustomed to the humidity.
Absolutely. With us being a beach city and kind of surrounded by water with the St. Johns River and the beaches out every day. So trust us, we're definitely used to the humidity. So absolutely.
Well, it's good to talk to somebody who can appreciate humidity. That's a part of life. Well, an Edward Waters College team that's going to be on the road a lot, and yourself as well, opened the season against Morehouse last week, 26-20, but a team that played well, who went through some hardships leading up to that game. Talk about that as far as this Edward Waters football team.
Yeah, well, this is under the second season of head coach Greg Ruffin, who was our 14th head coach in the history of EWC football. Edward Waters this year is our 69th year as a varsity program, and it's also our 19th year since the rebirth of the football program back in 2001. This year's team, as you said a few moments ago, and leading into that first game against Morehouse, definitely had some hardships and some issues that we had to overcome as a result of the issues with Hurricane Dorian. Just last week, we only had 2 days to really get some good practice in leading into the game last Saturday, our home opener and season opener against Morehouse. Morehouse came in with a game already up on us, playing in the classic game up in Canton, Ohio against Alabama A&M. But for a team, our young team, to come up just 6 points short against a good team like Morehouse that has the SIAC's preseason player of the year and player of the year from last year in Santo Dunn, to hold him to under 100 yards and some of the things that we were able to do despite some of those issues, to come up just 6 points short. I know we're not necessarily into moral victories, but something that you can definitely build upon for this very young team leading into the remainder of the season.
This team is a reflection of their coach, Coach Ruffin, who has experience all throughout, even throughout the Southwestern Athletic Conference. Is it safe to say this team, so far early in the season, has taken on the attributes of their coach, Coach Ruffin?
Absolutely, without question. One thing that Coach Ruffin teaches his guys is he wants to have a breed of tough guys on his football team, a bunch of tough guys that are willing to do the things that they need to do in order to get a victory. They want a hard-nosed, tough football team. Want to be able to run the ball and have some success in doing that and kind of do some things off of that with running the football. Weren't able to really do that with a lot of success last week as a result of, some sacks and things like that. But want to be able to get things done through running the ball. And I want to be able to have a group of tough guys that, as I said before, just do the things that they need to do in order to put wins on the board. But yeah, they definitely are a spitting image of their head coach. And, the things that Coach Ruffin has been able to do in just over a year at the helm of the football program has been great to see. And it really just shows that the future is very bright for the BWC football team.
I'm visiting with Joshua C. Jackson, voice of the EWC Sports Radio Network. So at 6 p.m. or a little bit after 6 p.m. when the teams kick off, when we look at EWC offensively, what will we witness as far as what EWC likes to do offensively?
Well, last week we did have some success with passing the football. It's not necessarily something that we would like to be able to do. We want to be able to run the ball. We want to be able to win the battle at the line of scrimmage. Probably aren't going to be able to do that tonight. We're playing against a Division I team like Southern University, but primarily they want to be able to run the ball. Last week they were able to have some success with passing the ball over 200 yards passing between our two sophomore quarterbacks. Still trying to find that one guy that's going to lead the team as a quarterback, and not having that week of practice leading into that first game really kind of hampered being able to identify that one guy that can lead this team from that quarterback position. So you're going to see two quarterbacks more than likely tonight. You'll see Jayshawn Francis, a sophomore quarterback out of Monticello, Florida, and you'll also see a guy in Rashard Branch, another sophomore quarterback out of Plantation, Florida. Two guys that can definitely throw the ball. Jayshawn Francis probably the more athletic of the two quarterbacks that can maybe do some things with running the ball and that sort of thing. So this is a team that wants to be able to run the ball. Got a lot of quality running backs. It's going to be led by Malik Stevens, our junior transfer. running back out of Miles College, who transferred in from Miles College this past year. So got a lot of things done in the backfield last week. Scored a touchdown in the game last week against Morehouse College. So this is a team that wants to be able to be physical and want to be able to kind of dictate the pace of any team that they'll face.
Now, help me out with this name, Tiberius. Is that
Tiberius Horn? Tiberius Horn. Yep.
Career high, 114 yards on 5 catches last week, and a sophomore. It seems like the sky is the limit for this young man.
Absolutely. True sophomore out of that great program down in Miami Northwestern High School. He's definitely a guy that can really, if he continues to develop his game, can really go down as being one of the greats at Edward Waters, and had a great breakout game last week against Morehouse College. As we said, 5 catches, 114 yards. He was our player of the week for his efforts last week. Had a couple of great diving catches last week. Last year, he had the propensity of catching the harder ball but dropping the easier ball. This year, he's really worked on his game over the offseason, really took his offseason training seriously, and it showed during training camp, and it definitely showed last week against Morehouse College. So he's a guy that's going to be able to get behind defense and show that speed. He's got some big hands, a great catching radius. So he's a guy that if he continues to, develop his game and get things going in the right direction, he could be a guy that can really go down in the EWC history books.
I'm visiting with Joshua Jackson, the voice of the EWC Sports Radio Network. Now, defensively, what do we look for, or what will we see from EWC defensively?
On that side of the ball, we converted from a 4-3 defensive alignment to a 3-4 defensive alignment with the addition of our new defensive coordinator, in Antoine Manning, who comes over from Texas College, who actually coached with Coach Ruffin at Texas College a couple of years ago. This is a team that wants to be an attacking defense and want to take advantage of their athleticism at the linebacker spots. A couple of big guys up front with Willis Glover, our big 300-plus pound nose tackle. He'll kind of control things at the nose tackle spots. And also our guy on the defensive end, and Matthew Wilkerson, who we'll see not only as defensive end, but you'll also see him in some tight end sets as well offensively. 6'6", 200-plus pounder out of Central Florida, a junior college transfer. He's actually the younger brother of a former NFL first-round draft pick and two-time All-Pro and Pro Bowler Muhammad Wilkerson from the New York Jets. So he's definitely got some athleticism in that family as well. A lot of athletic linebackers, a lot of athleticism at the cornerback spots. So want to be able to take advantage of that speed and do some things there with converting from that 4-3 to a 3-4 defensive alignment.
Now, last week had some special teams problems, but the team you're facing has had some as well this year. Did Coach Ruffin talk about, trying to correct that situation for special teams this week?
Absolutely. There'll be a new long snapper in this week. There were some issues with snapping the ball on an extra point and also some issues with snapping on a punt, which ultimately resulted in a Morehouse touchdown last week. So those are some things that have been addressed and hopefully are corrected and can be evident in tonight's game tonight. The one thing that you can't afford to happen against a team like Southern, regardless of the issue, regardless of what happened with the teams that they faced before, you can't give them 3 points, and you got to find a way to control the things that you can control, and don't gift them points like we did last week against Morehouse. So if we're able to control that aspect of it, we can hopefully be able to make a good account of ourselves here tonight.
Now, Edward Waters, of course, is transitioning from NAIA to Division II, and of course playing in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And his name escapes me right now. A player from Edward Waters is from Louisiana. I want to say Lafayette, but he was talking about getting a lot of family members into the game. What does this game mean? I know it comes down to wins and losses, but what does this game say for Edward Waters coming into and playing up and coming in Baton Rouge and playing a game for the players on the team?
It's really an opportunity for Edward Waters to get our brand out there, of course, and everyone knows about Florida A&M, everyone knows about Bethune-Cookman, but not a lot of people know about Edward Waters, and not a lot of people know about Florida Memorial, or the two HBCUs in the state of Florida. It's an opportunity for us to get our brand out. Our band will be here, our president will be here. We have a couple of buses that are coming from Jacksonville, full of fans coming over to support this team, and for a team that's a small NAIA school, as you say, that's in the beginning stages of possibly transitioning to Division II, it really says a lot. You know, you can take on teams like the Southern University that has the pedigree and has all of the great players and, you know, the great coaches in Pete Richardson and the great coach we have right now in Dawson Odoms. To be able to go up against a school like that's been on the national scene in the world of HBCU football, and that's been one of the top teams in the SWAC for the past number of years, it says a lot about the direction that the EWC football can possibly go, with being able to match up with teams like a Southern and like a Prairie View at the end of the year, to be able to get our brand out and have people see what we are about, the small HBCU out of Jacksonville. Real quick, that young man you were speaking of was Christian Hayes, our junior starting cornerback out of Lubbock, Texas. As you said, he was a native of Lafayette, Louisiana, and had to move to Lubbock as a result of the issues with Hurricane Katrina. He moved when he was 11 years old. But you want to talk about a guy who's chomping at the bit to get on the field at A.W. Mumford Stadium tonight. I spoke with him this morning at breakfast, and he is definitely roaring to go.
Boy, I think I'll be able to recognize him in warm-ups. Even if I know his number, he will be the guy that will be sky high and want to play well back in his home state. Well, Joshua, it's been a pleasure having you on. Hopefully you've been able to have some of the great cuisine here in Louisiana and Baton Rouge. And the weather is, I'm sure, to your liking. And I've been following you from afar for a few years, so it's been a pleasure to finally get a chance to talk with you on the air, and somehow I got a feeling it won't be the last time.
Absolutely. Carlos, likewise, I definitely appreciate everything that you do for HBCU athletics, and definitely looking forward to speaking with you guys really, really soon. Thanks for having me on this morning.
Appreciate it, and I'll make it a great time to come up and introduce myself and today before the game. I'll definitely do that.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it.
All right.
Thanks
a lot. That was Joshua Jackson of the Edward Waters College Radio Network joining us, giving us a kind of preview of EWC. They'll participate today at 6 p.m., a little bit after 6 p.m., in the Pete Richardson Classic at A.W. Mumford Stadium today. It's going to be a good game. And I say a good game and because I know Southern's favorite, but Edward Waters College is excited to be here, and I think they're going to put their best foot forward, the best effort. And, hey, Southern University, your favorite, but guess what? You've got to take on every opponent, and you cannot take a week off. You cannot. So it'll be very interesting. Edward Waters beginning a 4-game road trip starting today in Baton Rouge, Louisiana against Southern University. Going to take a timeout. Going to keep up the theme going of the Pete Richardson Classic. I didn't get Coach Richardson, but I got a former player. And he is going to visit with me next. Carlos Leach, 93 to 96, played at Southern University. Many of you probably know who I'm talking about. Outstanding kicker. Now, very successful in life. I'll ask him, what was it that convinced him to come to Southern University and talk about the man, the legend himself, Coach Pete Richardson, and the Pete Richardson Classic. Visit with Carlos Leach next. You're listening to the Carlos Brown Show on the Open Mic Broadcast Network and Spreaker.com.
So this is Alonzo Hardy, Vice President of the SWAC Alumni Association. The SWAC Alumni Association is an organization founded in 19 99 with the goal of enhancing the great legacy of excellence in the SWAC as well as preserving the athletic heritage of the SWAC. Its membership is open to former athletes as well as current and former coaches, assistant coaches, athletic administrators, referees, employees of conference member institutions, as well as fans of SWAC sports. Individuals interested in gaining membership can contact the organization's president, Roscoe Nance, at 509 Worcester Street in Herndon, Virginia, 20170. Annually, the SWAC Alumni Association holds a Legends Award in which Lifetime Achievement Awards are presented. Occasionally, a legend of the conference is honored in a roast, and annually one or two former student athletes are presented degree completion scholarship awards. Contact the organization's president, Roscoe Nance, at 509 Worcester Street in Herndon, Virginia, 20170.
The birth of legends are storied in this conference. We must never forget our rich history. We now turn our gaze to the future. The new legends will emerge. New heroes to arise. The Southwestern Athletic Conference. Be our history.
Welcome back to this week's edition of the Colors Brown Show, heard exclusively right here on the Open Mic Broadcast Network. Dr. Prince, I'll deal with you. I'll deal with you at the next break. I love you too.
Hey, you might as well go on and tell him what we were talking about in the break.
Well, yeah, he said we are one played by the sonic boom of the South. That's blasphemy. That's blasphemy. We know it's a human jukebox. And I'm going to tie all this in. Speaking of Jackson, my next guest played for the legendary Pete Richardson from 93 to 96. And he got a kick out of things, get it? He was the famous Carlos Leach, and I do believe from Jackson, Mississippi. Carlos, good morning to you.
Good morning to you all.
Dr. Prince has been a bad prince. The sonic boom of the South, indeed.
It's all in
Carlos,
love, baby. It's all in love. All in love.
Yeah, they're probably the second best band in the conference right now. But anyway, Carlos
okay,
Leach.
we'll let you go on.
How you doing? Good morning to you, sir.
I'm doing great. It sounds like you guys are riled up and ready for this first home game.
Well, yeah, I'm always fired up. It's a long season, and you know about seasons, and, you know, every week is a battle. And I think the players and the staff say win this week. So the job today is to win this week. Then you win next week. But we'll get your comments and thoughts on this Southern University football team so far this season. But I want to start with talking about Coach Richardson and what he has meant to you as far as a student, athlete, a man, how successful that you are, and we'll talk a little bit about that in life past football. What does Coach Pete Richardson mean to Carlos Leach?
Well, that's an interesting question. I think the first thing that comes to mind when, you know, as I told you before the show started, I came in when Pete Richardson first got to Southern University. I was a part of his first recruiting class. And, you know, as we went through training camp and we're getting ready for the season, the one thing I noticed the most is that he instilled a sense of discipline in the program. And people who were already there, they probably had a good feel that change was coming. Like, they could tell that the way we operated as a football team, there was a change in the air. Mm-hmm. So I guess the first characteristic I noticed about Pete Richardson is that he instilled a lot of discipline. And so that went a long way, not only on the field, but off the field.
Yeah, because, our first look at him, of course, was on the practice field. And he didn't say a lot, but I noticed he took notes and he kind of moved around. And his assistant coaches, position coaches, coordinators, they were doing most of the talking and being verbal. But to me, he came across as, cerebral. And you talk about discipline. You get the same feeling your first, couple of practices at Southern University under Coach Richardson?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. When we got there, you hit it on the head. He instilled a pretty good, or I would say a great supporting cast. I mean, some of the assistant coaches that he implemented on the team were awesome. I mean, they came from all over, all walks of life. I mean, I don't know if you guys remember, we had an Asian defensive coordinator, Italian offensive coordinator, black coaches on the staff, but some kind of way it all worked together. Pete Richardson wasn't the most outspoken person, but he got his point across, and he got everybody to buy in on it. And quietly as maybe kept, he was actually a pretty funny guy. I remember, when we first got there in the summer, not everybody was invested in the fitness test. So you could tell some people didn't really work out as much. And he let it be known that most people were eating that Bojangles all summer long. That was his favorite joke. And he said he was going to run that Bojangles out of us. And he did.
And it's interesting because I remember Coach Richardson the year before, I believe, Southern played Winston-Salem State in Shreveport. And so when the announcement was made, and Southern won very handily, and the announcement was made, later on that he's going to be the head coach at Southern University, people were kind of like taken back, because they had just beaten the Winston-Salem team that actually was very good, but were playing up against Southern University. And to your point about Cliff Yoshida, Mark Orlando, who's now offensive coordinator at Grambling State University, go figure. But you remember the shirts they used to have? They had printed out. What was it? Was it the Rainbow Coalition or the staff of colors?
I remember those shirts. Yeah. Right.
And Carlos, all of that was different for people at Southern University, at that time. But hey, it worked, and bringing different coaches in, you're absolutely right. And then that first year was just phenomenal. It
was. And we did some great things that year. And I think, what stood out to me as a freshman playing for the first time is we were putting people in the NFL. There were a number of scouts coming by each practice during the week. So you could tell that there was something special starting out under Pete Richardson's first year at Southern University.
And by the way, we visited with Carlos Leach, kicker for Southern University, 93 through 96, talking about Coach Richardson at Southern University. I know, Carlos, they were talking about naming the field for Pete Richardson. I would think that's a no-brainer, and I think it's coming. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, if you're going to name it after somebody, certainly Pete Richardson is deserving of that. I mean, we won so countless conference championships under him, numerous Black College trophies under him. We obtained a lot of notoriety under Pete Richardson over the years. Man, we played on NBC every year. We played on ESPN. We played on several station. So he did a lot for the program. I couldn't think of a better person to name it after. Now, A.W. Mumford obviously deserves to be named after the stadium too. So you got that dilemma. What do you do with A.W. Mumford? I don't know. Maybe, you've seen some schools name part of the stadium, like the athletic complex that sits in the circular part of the stadium. That's an option. Yeah. So I don't know, but that's a good problem to have when you have two dynamic people that have graced your program like that.
Yeah, visiting with Carlos Leach, a former Southern University player from 93 to 96. Now, Carlos, you put you on the spot a little bit, but it's not going to be bad. I know you have a lot of memories. I'm hearing you talking about your freshman year at Southern University. Is there ever a moment you could think of where Coach Richardson kind of got after you or challenged you? And
yes,
how did you respond to that?
All right, so I will never ever forget this moment.
Okay, good.
For me, leaving Jackson, Mississippi to play for Southern University was a big deal because everybody in Jackson, Mississippi wanted me to stay, but I wanted to come to Southern University. So when we played Jackson State every year, that was like my Super Bowl. And, most of the fans at Southern University treated it that way too, to this day. We make that caravan up to Jackson and vice versa, and it's usually the highest attended game other than the Bayou Classic. But I think it was my senior year. We played at home, and I kicked a 52-yarder, which is my long at the time. And, it was a very hyped game. The bands were going back and forth. And we kicked the field goal near Jackson State's side of the stadium where the band was. And I looked over there, and I gave him the gun salute, taunting the band. We're getting hyped. We're high-fiving. And what do you know? The referee throws that yellow laundry on the field. I get a personal foul.
Uh-oh.
So that was a long run from that side of the field back to the sidelines. And, of course, Pete Richardson was waiting on me. And let's just say he had some choice words for me that game.
I mean, because, folks, if you remember Coach Richardson to this day, to me, when I first saw him, he looked like a college professor. Some would say, what does a college professor look like? With the glasses. He just was quiet. But when he got mad, it was just priceless. It was like he was a total different person. Go ahead, Carlos. I'm sorry.
No, it's true. I mean, there were many days he would come to practice, or we'd see him on a Sunday in the training room, on a Monday, and he had completely lost his voice. So you're right. Mm-hmm. As they say, he could go 0 to 100 real quick. Mm-hmm. But, it was all fun and games. You know what? At the end of the day, if you ask the majority of his players, they have an allegiance toward Pete Richardson like no other. And they all love him, long term. And that's hard to find in a coach, you know what I mean? I think over the years, he's been responsible for not only good athletes, but good men, people who are good in the community, they're making differences in the community, and they're family men. So, I mean, once you put all those characteristics together, I think you'll see that Pete Richardson was something special.
And that leads me to now. For those who don't know, what is Carlos Leach doing? His occupation. What is he doing now outside of football? And, of course, Coach Richardson with a helping hand along with your parents as well to your transition after your collegiate days at Southern University. What is Carlos Leach doing now?
Well, right now, I currently reside in Orlando, Florida. I have my own law firm, the Leach Firm. We handle employment, personal injury, and workers' compensation for individuals only. Had the firm open 2 years now, and I've been practicing law for about 17 years. So life is good, and I would certainly have to say that a part of my success was because I played under Pete Richardson.
Yeah, I would agree. And boy, just adding on to that, from Jackson, Mississippi. Wow.
That's right.
Can you go home Can you go home now after all these years?
Oh yeah. I can go home, but to this day, me and my old classmates, high school, middle school, elementary, we have some good banter back and forth. They still hold it against me, but I can go back home.
Oh, I understand. Well, my favorite team to cheer against is JSU. Everyone who's listened to me over the years know that, but at the end of the day, you're still HBCU family. And I look forward to coming to Jackson this year, just in November. But
I think I might have to make that trip with you.
Yeah. Isn't that weird, though, of November? It usually was October, I guess, even when you were at Southern University, correct?
Yeah, it was usually end of October. We had about 3-4 weeks before the Bayou Classic after that game. But it's it's fun when you go to Jackson because the weather changes. Now it feels a whole lot more like football. The weather's a little bit cooler, and that band comes in the stadium, and it's just a electric feeling in the air when you play Jackson State at Jackson State.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. And even at A.W. Mumford Stadium, one of the higher attended games when Jackson State comes to Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Well, it's been a pleasure, as always, to have you join me here on the Carlos Brown Show and to get your perspective on the man, the legend, Coach Pete Richardson, who with the Classic game now in year 2, get a chance to see him tonight. He still looks well, works out, and he deserves it. He really deserves it because after A.W. Mumford, and there's no disrespect to any of the other coaches, A.W. Mumford and Pete Richardson, when you talk Southern University coaches, those two names come up. Carlos, any closing comments you would like to share with us?
Well, I like to say that Southern University has gone through some ups and downs. As I said earlier, Pete Richardson brought us back up where we used to be. And then, obviously when he left, they were trying to put the pieces back together. But for me, seeing what Coach Odoms is doing now, most recently in the last 2 years, it brings back an eerie feeling that, that whole program is back to what Pete Richardson brought it years ago. So I hope, as a former Jaguar player, that we can continue to make strides in another year or two. I see us winning games like a McNeese game and, and potentially even winning against a school like Memphis. So we just got to keep that momentum going and, enjoy the festivities tonight. And if you see Coach Richardson, tell him I said hello.
I will definitely do that. He'll be a busy man. He'll be down on the field. He'll be all over the place. But I'm glad there's still a relationship between Coach Richardson and the university, and he's being much more visible now. And I'm glad. I'm glad for Coach Richardson. I'm glad to have had you on. Let's talk again on the air real soon.
Let me know anytime. I got some more funny stories for you, by the way.
Oh, okay. That's what I like. So we'll do this again. Have a great weekend,
right.
Carlos. Appreciate your
All
time.
right. You too.
All right.
Good day.
Thank you, sir. Carlos Leach, former Southern University player. And boy, that's a funny story. Coach Richardson meets him when he comes to the sideline after kicking a 52-yard field goal. I can see the emotions overtaking Carlos because it's in Jackson. And you're playing Jackson State. The emotions always run high. And I remember years past, Grambling State alums and some of the Southern alums that were older than me, they would always chastise me about being so emotional about the Jackson State game because it's the Bayou Classic and Grambling State. As I've said many times before, you play Grambling State, it's like playing your cousin. It's a family member. It's not as, what's the word I could use? It is not as where you want to just kick them, beat them, bite them, scratch them in a healthy way. Grambling like Jackson State University. That is a different type of rivalry. The fan bases are a lot alike. Cocky, arrogant, confident, what have you. Love to tailgate. Grambling State is family. So it's a different type of feeling. But Jackson State, and then, of course, rivalries are just that. When you win some, they win some games. So I can't speak of any other team right now. I have my eye on another team, but you can't really get after them because they have really taken you to the woodshed. Yeah, that smoke, I understand. Oh, I have to hear that every day. So until you have some success, some consistent success, they have the advantage. And speaking of the smoke, coming up next, Charles Edmond of the Alcorn State Radio Network. He'll join me. We'll recap the games in the conference last week, get the schedule for this week, maybe a prediction or two. But Prairie hosting Nicholls State, McNeese on the road against Alcorn State. No, Alcorn State on the road against McNeese. And Jackson State and Tennessee State. Southern Heritage Classic. JSU and Southern, they need to taste victory. Will JSU finally get over the hump against Tennessee State? We shall see. But coming up next, Charles Edmond of the Alcorn State Radio Network. You're listening to the Carlos Brown Show on the Open Mic Broadcast Network and Spreaker.com.
Chris, can you put the video game controller down for a second?
I can talk and play. Oh, I'm totally annihilating this punk kid in Nebraska.
I just feel like you're not acting like a grown-up in our relationship.
Am too.
Well, you still ride your skateboard to work. There's the comic book collection, the race car bed.
Look, I'm young at heart, but I put money into my 401k every paycheck. I picked up a few savings tips at feedthepig.org. I have control over my financial life now, and that feels pretty grown up.
Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. Putting some money from every paycheck into a savings account or contributing to your 401k can make a big difference later. For free ideas and easy tips on ways to save, go to feedthepig.org. That's feedthepig.org.
So, I bet I look like a grown-up to you now.
Well, except for the footy pajamas, I'd have to agree.
This message brought to you by the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants and the Ad Council.
After my first car accident, I feared the biggest damage would be to my wallet. I expected a mountain of bills and a long, drawn-out process. But my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent was there when I needed her and helped me get back on my feet and in my car in no time. Instead of a hassle, I got reassurance and a quick recovery.
Call Agent Jeremy West at 936-931-3696 to see if you qualify to save up to 40% off your auto insurance.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Welcome back to hour number 2 of this week's edition of the Carlos Brown Show. Heard exclusively right here on the Open Mic Broadcast Network and Spreaker.com. A SWAC football report with Charles Edmond of the Alcorn State Radio Network. Charles, we might have to start playing that chant. The Alcorn music. Unbelievable. That's a song you hear in your head. If you play on a Saturday, you'll hear it to Monday in your head. At least me. Oh boy, how you doing, sir?
I am doing wonderful. Another Saturday in the Southwestern Athletic Conference, and you never know what you're going to come up with.
Yeah, well, thanks, DQ already. It's smoke time, hour number 2. Okay. Oh, Corn fan, I tell you, love the passion. Unbelievable. You know, if Southern wins that game, Charles, I'm going to be I'm going to be uncontrollable. I'm not going to say I'll strip on the 50-yard line, but I'm going to be uncontrollable. Thanks a lot, Dr. Prince, playing that music. I understand. Yeah.
You made a request, sir. You made the request, so I'm just trying to honor your request.
That's right. And, I'll see you in October when Prairie View comes to AW Month. I hope the heat index is 115.
It already might be 120 right now.
It's smoking. Well, Charles, in the conference last week, some big games. But before we do that, get an opening statement from you about the conference and last week.
It's early in the season, and I've had to kind of taper myself down a little bit because of the fact that it's early in the season, and a lot of these non-conference games, you get some sense of where you are, but not really. Conference play kind of starts in earnest, I believe, next week and going forward. So I think last week, you had some pretty good non-conference games, some disappointments for me as far as some of the conference matchups that we had. And, of course, Alcorn beat Mississippi College. Southern University, kind of hung tough there. Jackson State is still a struggle offensively for them. Prairie View, it's still early, and I think, I always have to think about what you say in football. We get excited, we get mad, we get glad. It's just too early to tell. And I just think that at this point, I think going forward, starting this week, I think you'll see some of the pieces of some of these teams go with their guys. You got teams that are playing still 2 or 3 quarterbacks. I think that's going to have to change if they want to get to where they want to go. So I think starting this week, you're going to see a lot of definition, I would say, in this conference in terms of who your playmakers are, who's going to be the guys that's going to take you forward. And I think some teams took a step forward, and I think some teams took a step backwards last week. And it's kind of disappointing in a sense because you expect certain teams to get to that threshold, and they just can't get there at this time. So it's still early yet, the bottom line, and we'll see what this week involves. It could be another wacky week in the SWAC.
Well, of course, to me, there are a couple of games that are benchmark games, and you have to preface this by saying, yeah, conference is coming up. Everyone knows that you've got to win every institution in a conference across America, their goal is to win the conference. So they have to do that. But I look at some of the non-conference matchups, in particular when there's an FCS opponent. For those who favor going to wish that there were more participation by SWAC institutions that play football to get into the playoffs. Well, these are the type of games to tell you where you would stand. Now, for those who don't, like our teams participating or could care less if they participated at an at-large bid or what have you in the FCS playoffs, you still can use these games as a benchmark, a measuring stick. So we're gonna come back to that. Want to recap the scores from last week and give a couple of shout-outs to a couple of institutions. And one in particular, no one is still not talking about them, but I'm going to talk about them in a few seconds. But first and foremost, of course, we already know Southern lost to Memphis 55-24. But Charles, Southern went straight down the field, scored on their opening possession. They're only down by 3 at one point, 17-14. They're down by 10 at the half. And then in the second half, only 7 points scored by Jay Lewis with a strip and fumble recovery, and he takes it the distance. It was a long run. That's a game, it kind of played out the way you would think that type of game would play out, Charles. 85 scholarships, 63. You're just going to get worn down. And Memphis, a very explosive offensive team. Your quick thoughts on that ball game, and did you see any of it?
I didn't see any of it. I was following kind of the play-by-play, and I have to give I have to give Southern thumbs up. I mean, because we all know the intangibles, the 85 scholarships, the 63 scholarships, and I was to see Southern's defense kind of step up in the second half and make a play, because that's kind of been Southern's issue. I mean, offensively they scored enough points in the past. It was last year they did, but defensively they've sprung some leaks. But it's good to see Southern defensively at least make a stand and at least continue to play hard. And I think going into the conference, I think if Southern's defense continues to make plays and you get a good offensive flow with Skelton and company, Southern can be a dangerous team once we roll in the SWAC play.
Well, we'll roll on with the rest of the scores. I'll just give them out, and then we'll come back and get your take on some of the games. The UAPB, all over Alabama A&M, 52-34. Louisiana Tech over Grambling State, 20-14. Come back to that one. Houston over Prairie View, 37-17. And Cartnet Word, no, it wasn't a basketball score, 63, Texas Southern 44. Alabama State over Tuskegee, 38-31. Of course, Alcorn State over Mississippi College, 45-7. South Alabama over Jackson State, 37-17. And Lamar University over Mississippi Valley State, 23-20. Let me go back. My first, I want to talk about Louisiana Tech over Grambling State, 20-14. I only got a chance to see basically half of the third quarter and the fourth quarter. Was it me, or did anyone else feel the same if they saw it? It was almost like if there was a little bit more time, Grambling State was going to win this ball game. Now, I'm not sure if the Louisiana Tech defense had their second unit in, but I thought Grambling State offensive line just took it right at Louisiana Tech. Kudos to Grambling State University, and they're not getting a lot of talk. Now, I understand what happened last year, but Grambling State, and then down inside the 5 in the fourth quarter, and they came away with no points. Man, Grambling State, I think they're going to be heard from in the conference. Just a slight prediction, Charles.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, actually, Louisiana Tech, I would say, is probably better than ULM, and I was expecting the closer game to be ULM, but Grambling played Tech well, and two schools 5 miles apart. It's good to see Grambling come out and play with that type of energy. And offensively, still trying to figure out their quarterback situation with no Kincaid. They played 2 quarterbacks last year. Is it Hickbotham? Will he be the guy going forward? But Grambling's defense, holding Tech, a team that typically scores a lot of points, to just 20 points on the road, I think that's a good sign. And offensively, as you said, they got to the 1 yard line. We've seen 2 games, Carlos, quickly. Alabama State was at UAB's 1 yard line in week 1 and couldn't score. And that was the difference in the game. Grambling the same way. So, you got to be able to get the ball in when you're in the red zone, especially when you're playing up, because you don't get many chances when you're playing those type of teams.
Yeah. Again, hats off to Grambling State University. UAPB. All right, Charles. The conversation, the talk on social media, on the phones, ants talking to ants. Baby, is UAPB that good? 52-34 over Alabama A&M. Should now UAPB be taken seriously, or do we go back to what we were saying early on in this conversation? It's still early. Let's kind of keep the emotions down a bit and see what happens in the next 3 or 4 weeks.
I'm going to start with UAPB because there's a personal connection between me and UAPB head coach Cedric Thomas. Congratulations to UAPB and Cedric Thomas. Yeah. He's a hard-working guy, and his stamp is in that football facility over there, and he's worked his tail off since he's been at UAPB. I can tell you that. And so, for them to go to Huntsville and to get a win, I think, not a lot of people saw that coming, but I guarantee you nobody saw them put a whipping on A&M like they did in terms of the number of points scored. I didn't see it coming, And if anyone 7 days ago said that they saw that coming, they're lying to you. Because UAP, I mean, UAP, I mean, no, I mean, UAPB just is not the type of team to score those type of points. Now, does that say that Alabama A&M's defense just didn't show up? And look, I'll say this: A&M struggles at home, and it's been kind of a reoccurring theme for them. You know, we've ruined 2 of their homecomings. Talking about Alcorn, it's something about Alabama A&M when they play at home, they just don't bring it. And for them to have the big win over Morehouse, albeit 9 seconds left, you should have been flying around and should have been so excited to come home, conference game, home opener, and then this happens. So you take a step forward, then you take 2 steps back. Now, as we said, it's still early. And will A&M recover? I'm sure they'll get back on par, but I think this game was more so about UAPB just taking it to Alabama A&M more so than Alabama A&M just simply not getting it done at home.
Yeah, I think Alabama A&M has some defensive problems, and I take the opposite view. That Morehouse game, that threw up red flags to me. I mean, before the season started, I said O-line and D-line in the trenches, beating the heavyweights in the conference to say that now they're in that top echelon. And I'll have to be honest, I kind of scoffed at their second prediction, when predicted to be second in the East. So they still have a few more weeks to convince me otherwise, but until then, I'm not surprised. Call me arrogant. I know I'm in the minority, but I'm not surprised. Am I surprised that UAPB put up 52 points? Yeah. But I'm not surprised that they lost. It's just, I don't know, there's something missing. They got the coach, they've got the skilled people, but it's just something missing. Maybe besides defense, I don't know. But anyway, just my take on that game. Mississippi Valley, another team. Dr. Prince has stated that they would be much improved based on the first 2 games. Close loss to Tennessee State and a close loss to Lamar. Can we now say that Dr. Prince was right?
So far, he is, and I'm very surprised at how well Valley has played and how competitive they have been, and I think also the fact that we talk about these conference teams every week, and we talk about the teams that are under the most pressure, but we don't talk about Valley quite as much. Maybe we should now talk about them a little bit more, and I think a few more eyes are on them now than it was 3 weeks ago before the season started. I mean, still the grind of the SWAC, but Valley's defense, really. I mean, Tennessee State, they kind of sprung a leak there, but offensively they rose to the occasion. And then, holding Lamar in check. I think, Valley just finding their identity, offense, defense. I think they're a team that could cause some problems for you. And so far, I think Valley has been a very pleasant surprise. Even though they haven't won, they've been very competitive, and I think you can make the case they could very well be 2-0 right now.
Well, not moral victories. Most people say they don't believe in that. But hey, let's just give credit what credit is due. You're in a ball game when you play Valley so far this year, and it'll be interesting coming up as we look ahead a little bit. I know they've got in a couple of weeks.
Alcorn.
Alcorn.
Yes.
We'll put an answer. Oh, Charles says yes. Charles sounds like he's excited about that one.
Hey, I'll say this: Valley has my attention. I guarantee you that. I mean, based on what has happened, Valley has my attention. Absolutely. I mean, because obviously you look at what we got today with McNeese, and then Prairie View next week. Yeah, Valley has my attention. So yes, absolutely.
Well, with that being said, any other games stood out last week as far as in the conference?
I look at that Texas Southern Incarnate Word game kind of rattled my cage a little bit.
Was that a basketball score? No.
Yeah, it's kind of, and maybe it shouldn't because you have a first-year head coach. And should we give Texas Southern kind of a pass? I didn't expect that type of score. And maybe Incarnate Word is a lot better than what we thought. And Texas Southern's still trying to figure it out. But TSU scoring some points, and that's the one thing that comes out of it, for me, is the fact that maybe TSU's defense still has a lot of work to do. But that kind of shook me up a little bit to see that type of score at this point. But again, you have a first-year head coach who's still trying to find his way, and so you have to kind of take a step back on that.
Well, a listener says Alcorn has an interesting next 3-game stretch that wasn't expected. PV, Valley, and Alabama State.
Yep. Alabama State has my attention too, because Alabama State very well could be, 2-0. Alabama State should have beat. They should have beat UAB, and then for them to beat Tuskegee. Their team. You talk about top tier, mid tier, lower tier. Alabama State right now. It's just 2 weeks in. You could say that you got Grambling, Alcorn, Southern. Then who's in that next tier? I think you can make the case that Alabama State right now is in that next tier because of the fact that they won a high scoring game against Tuskegee, should have beat UAB. So it's one of those things where, and nobody's talking about Bama State either. But I think that's helping them in the sense that nobody's really talking about them, nobody's paying them any attention, and they're quietly going about their business. And for them to win a rival game like that, I guess for Bama State fans who might be listening, who's the bigger rival, Tuskegee or Alabama A&M? Of course, from a crowd perspective, the Magic City draws 70,000 plus. I understand that there were thousands of people outside of Hornet Stadium at the Tuskegee game last week. That probably could have been 40,000 people there at Hornet Stadium last week. So, you got two schools right there, one 90 miles away, one 30 minutes away. Which is the bigger rival? And for Bama State to step up like that and pull out a game like that, I think they have my attention as well. And the person is right. These next 3 games are going to be table setters, whether or not the Braves really hang in there in the East with Bama State, Prairie View, and Valley coming up in the next month.
Well, now I'm going to transition into today's schedule and some interesting ball games. And some teams going to want to prove themselves, but they have tough opponents. Some teams got embarrassed last week. What is the mental makeup? You always want to see how a team responds to adversity. Well, we shall see today. September 14, 2019, of course, today's schedule. Alabama A&M, who, quite honestly, were embarrassed. They're at North Alabama. Kennesaw State at Alabama State. Charles, I still don't know how I feel about Alabama State just yet. I want to hold back the reins a little bit. Could be a better team. Record may not show it, but I've got them in my watch list now. Yep. Along with Valley. Along with UAPB. Alcorn State at McNeese. Benchmark. Now, I'm going to come back to that one quickly. Tennessee State at Jackson State. Nicholls State at Prairie View A&M. Benchmark game. Edward Waters at Southern. It is what it is. Jaguars needed victory, and I won it. Albeit Edward Waters, it could be Holy Waters. Some teams need a victory. Southern and Jackson State need a victory. Texas Southern at Louisiana. ULL, excuse me. And then Langston at UAPB. Now, Langston's a dangerous team. I've seen them last year. They have a pretty good program there. UAPB at home. Coming off a big victory, 52 points. Langston, let's see if they're focused. Let's see if the success they've enjoyed, great success, will it have them coming in, overlooking anybody. I don't think they would, but we shall see. Langston at UAPB, Charles.
Cedric Thomas is my buddy, and I think this is going to be one of the better games of the week. Actually, UAPB still trying to learn how to win on a consistent basis. That was a big win last week, and it's easy to get caught up in a game like that and think you got it, and then Langston comes in there and slaps you in the face, and then you realize you don't have it. I'm gonna give UAPB the edge at home. I think that'll be a good bridge game for them to see if they really have some things figured out, and it's a good test. I have UAPB winning that game.
Nickel State at Prairie View. Benchmark game to me. Southland against SWAC.
Yep.
Can Prairie View take care of Nickel State, a team who got beat handily last week, but they've pulled off some upsets with FBS teams in the past. I know of Nickel State, and by the way, they've gotten another transfer at quarterback, Lindsey Scott Jr. Go figure. I'm going to stop right there. I could get too emotional about that. But anyway, Nickel State and Prairie View A&M. Who do you think comes away with the W tonight?
I'm going to go with Nickel State. Prairie View is one of those teams. It's just hard to figure. I mean, it's early in the season, and maybe Coach Dooley's just doesn't have everything installed yet. But when you're playing these type of teams at home, out of conference, you don't get the synergy that you would get if Prairie View was playing Southern or Alcorn, and we see this throughout the conference now, especially in these type of games. You're at home. A quality team coming to Panther Stadium. You don't get that too often. But I think Nickel State probably has a lot more firepower. Prairie View, they can score points, but their defense just can't get off the field. And if they can't do it today, it's gonna be a rough day before they come to Alcorn next week. I have Nickel State winning that game. I love the SWAC. I want to see our SWAC team do well, but I just don't see enough for Prairie View right now. I'm going with Nickel State. O-line and D-line, if they play above expectations, I think it will be a close. It could be a close game. It could be a winnable game. But sounds like, Charles, you're already looking. It sounds like Coach McNair already has his eyes set for that conference opener with Prairie View coming on the reservation next week. Gonna be interesting. You have to be, and I know you want to win every game, and I know the Alcorn McNeese match previews coming up, but we got some guys who are trying to get healthy. Not saying you're going to hold anything back, but you have to kind of balance the scales here. You're playing a quality team. This is one of those teams on your level. You played up, you played down. This is the game that's going to be a good barometer for us to see where we are against a team. Once upon a time, it was one of the top FCS teams in the country. Roger Favre was an assistant coach here in this city, of course, the coach at Grambling. So this is a quality team, even though they were blown out at Oklahoma State. It's going to be interesting to see how we deal with this balanced offensive attack today.
Yeah, I'll put it this way. I'm pulling for Alcorn. I hope they're able to pull it off. I text you this week. No turnovers. Penalties, keep them to a minimum. And I honestly believe that Alcorn may have to throw it a little bit. I know they love to run it and get 400 yards rushing. But you remember the last time they played 2 years ago, I think?
Yep.
A great passing effort. And Alcorn, I thought was going to pull that game out. Will they need to throw for 400 yards? I'm not saying that. Balance is the key, but I think I'm going to stick to it. Noah Johnson's going to have to utilize his arm, and they're going to have to throw it to win.
Yeah, one of the things that they've been working on with Noah Johnson, if you look at the numbers in his play, he's overthrown, and we've had receivers open, and Noah Johnson's overshot a bunch of receivers first couple of games. And if we're going to stretch this team, you're going to have to hit those guys. If we're going to win the East, you're going to have to stretch the field, especially if you're not at your best running the football with Waller and another kid, Nico Duffy, with a freshman who's had 2 solid games. So I think today we are going to have to throw the football. We're going to have to have that vertical passing game going, and we're going to have to hit some receivers and kind of break down this defense, which is given up, by the way, 5 touchdown passes of over 40 yards. So, we're going to have to stretch the field. The numbers dictate that. We're going to have to do that if we're going to have any success.
Yeah. I know Southern had a 40-plus yarder and a 33-yarder passing. So that is a good point. I want to go back to the Nickel State and Prairie View A&M game. Dr. Prince.
Yes, sir.
Are you
yes,
there?
sir. I'm here. Yes, sir.
Let get the inside look. Prairie View A&M, Nickel State. That's Prairie View. What do they have to do to win the ball game at home?
Well, to begin, you got to execute in the trench game. It's going to always be with the trench game as far as I'm concerned with Prairie View. Skill positions, I have no doubts or qualms that skillfully they can match up with anybody, FBS, lower ranks, and FCS from top to bottom. They're going to have to be honest with you, man, it's going to have to be some cohesiveness of everybody coming on the same page. That they're going to have to be able to focus on football and no side attractions, no distractions. Focus on football, execute, and cover all 3 aspects of the game: defense, offense, and special teams.
Wow, you sound very confident. Why
confident?
I feel like I'm sensing something else, but can't put my finger on it.
Brother, all I can tell you is that still waters run deep, and sometimes you got to let stuff play itself out. And with that being said, life is full of complications. Life is full of layers, and you never know what each layer is going to bring, but you always have to be prepared for worst case scenarios. We always look for the best case scenario, which is good and good optimist way of thinking, but you have to anticipate the worst, so when it does hit low, you're never too shocked nor surprised. So expect the worst, but always do your best.
And that's one of the things, Carlos, when you're playing these teams out of conference, you're breaking them down and they're breaking you down. And I guarantee you, just like Prairie View Nickel, all point of McNeese. We gave up 2 special teams touchdowns a couple of weeks ago. I guarantee you, McNeese saw that on film. And that's going to flip the field position. It changes everything. So we're going to have to continue to, we did a decent job last week on the special teams. And when you're playing these other teams outside the league, those little things, penalties like you talked about, special teams, that's going to be a factor in kickoff coverage, punt returns, all of that when you're playing these teams out of conference, because they're trying to flip the field and make it easier for them. So that's, when you're playing those type of teams, those little things matter more than just about anything else when you're breaking down these type of games.
And may I piggyback on Tall Man Radio on that one? When you look at the breakdown, and in particular between the Southland and the SWAC over the past, let's say, 10 years, it has boiled down to special teams plays. Now, let's be honest. Let's address the elephant in the room. Especially on the road, you're not going to get any close, questionable calls. So you already know between 4 and 5 penalties are going to go against you, and it could be at a critical time. So you have to overcompensate that, and that comes down to your special teams play, whether it's the punt game or the kicking game. You have to execute those things. And we, as a conference, had not put much emphasis on special teams play until since 10 years ago. There was a time we didn't even attempt for point after touchdowns. We go for 2 and say whatever. A 25-yard field goal was an adventure for us. But now, recently, we are thinking about maybe a 40, 45-yard attempt. And heaven help us if we can get anything above 45 consistently, 50-yard range. So that's where we have to make up the ground. And that really comes to really spending money in those areas to even that playing field. A long snapper, a kicker, and a punter are just as essential as a quarterback running back, or tight end.
Well, turnovers, penalties. And the only thing I could base with the McNeese, I have to go back to game 1. Southern 5 turnovers, muff punts. Penalty-wise wasn't as bad, but those are the little things, the fundamentals of the game that you have to take care of that.
Absolutely. That was the breakdown in Valley.
Plan.
That was the breakdown in Valley last week against Lamar. Special teams play.
And I think that can be said a lot for every team. Every team, no matter which conference, if you don't work on special teams, and call me naive, I think you could tell the teams that spend a good amount of time on them, they don't have the problems at magnitude. But I would agree. You've got to, and I'll close on this. All three of us, I believe I can say this. It's important, these type of games, when you play them and to win. Because I know what it can do. Hey, it just accounts for one victory. But you're playing the Southland. McNeese is 13-0 against SWAC teams. And some would say, oh, well, don't throw those stats up to me. I could care less. But that's important.
They matter, brother. They matter.
It could be 14-0 unless Alcorn takes care of business tonight.
And this in the Southland Conference geographically makes sense for us, talking about the SWAC, in these matchups. FCS program, same number of scholarships. You can't say, well, you're playing a team with 85 scholarships, you only have 63 in D2. So in D2, they only have 36. That's the most that they offer in D2, 36 scholarships. So this is a team in McNeese, or whether it's Northwestern or Stephen F. Austin or Sam Houston, whatever the case, these are programs that mirror you in terms of scholarships, in terms of personnel. Now it's just a matter of you finding a way to beat that team, whether it's special teams. And you talk about punt and kickoff coverage. What about punt and kickoff returns? The days of the Willie Quinns in which they would get 3 or 4 touchdowns a year on special teams. We haven't talked about that in terms of a punt and kickoff return guy in our league that can flip the field. That's huge as well. Punt and kickoff coverage, punt and kickoff return. That's huge as well in terms of making it a little bit easier for our teams offensively to be able to score football.
Yeah. So to me, I can only speak for myself. These type of games matter. And I look at them with a critical, analytical eye. I look at all games that way, but especially these type of games. So I'm pulling for Prairie View, and I'm pulling for Alcorn State.
I expect more out of these games than I do FBS. When I go FBS, and I'm speaking on behalf as a fan, I want us to be competitive and come out as healthy as possible. That's what I look for. Go in there, compete, come back healthy, bring home your money. But when we're playing an FCS eye-to-eye, toe-to-toe opponent, I expect greater things.
Yeah. Charles, you want to close it out?
Yeah, I expect a pretty good game today. I think the Braves, if Noah Johnson can settle in with our running game, and if our defense can create havoc like it did against USM at times and against Mississippi College and slowing down a triple option, because I think McNeese is very vanilla, very balanced. They don't run the triple option. They don't do the RPO stuff. So I think the Braves defense can really lock in and come after this quarterback, Ogeron, who's the son of Ed Ogeron, the coach of LSU, we'll be looking at today. So I am looking forward to the Braves really being competitive here tonight against McNeese.
And, of course, next week we will talk about that game and the Prairie View Nickel State game, Tennessee State and Tennessee State and Jackson State. Jackson State needs a win in the worst way. Can they finally get over the Tennessee State hump? No, I heard somebody's not very confident, huh? the quarterback issue. Make a decision and go with it. I'm at the point now, the outside looking in, go with the young freshman, have growing pains, grow with that. Ponder looks like he knows the offense better, but just talking to a small sampling of Jackson State fans, they're ready to get him out of there as soon as possible. And Jones has been anointed. By the way, he's got a hip pointer. He's got other pointers to point out. He'll eventually ride in and saddle up, and he'll lead them to the promised land. Leonard says him, great athlete.
Let me ask you this, franchise. Let me ask you this.
I don't care for that.
Let me ask you this. Do you think that because of where Jones came from, Florida, there was so much great expectation on what he could possibly bring to Jackson State that that's an automatic shoe-in for the Jackson State nation, and they don't want to deal with Ponder because of Jackson and his quote-unquote pedigree when Jackson could be the great hype?
I think you're asking me to speak for – no, I'm not speaking for the Jackson State fans, but I think there are some that, yes, that's their way of thinking.
I personally believe Ponder gives him a better chance to win at this stage.
I said that a couple of weeks ago based on what I saw in the first game. But I think I'm in the minority on that. The minority way of thinking on that one. I think as soon as he can get healthy, and there's some other things that I've had privileged information about, that some things that, hey, Jones needs to take care of business outside of football.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Meetings and all of that. And I'll leave it at that. But I'll be facetious here. It doesn't matter on November 2nd. Doesn't matter who's back there.
Let your true colors prevail, brother. Let your true colors prevail.
Oh, yeah, they're going to come out. That's Jackson State. I will be on the reservation. Pain, joy or pain, sunshine or rain. I'll be in Laura one way or the other. And I'm looking for a change to happen. We shall see. A rivalry is just that. You win some, you lose some. You don't lose them all. You don't freaking win just one game out of 8 or 9. Goodness. No. That's not a rivalry. The other team has their foot on you. So I'm excited. It's a long season ahead. Charles, appreciate the time. Thank you, Dr. Prince.
Appreciate it, Carlos.
We'll talk with you next Saturday, Charles. Good luck. Have a great broadcast.
All right, appreciate it.
All righty. Our listener says, and then we'll go to the phone. Oh, we're well overdue. We'll give the remaining time to Brandon B.J. Jones. I expect to beat everyone on my level and some above my level as I strive to become good enough to beat more above my level. That could be the saying of the show. Thanks a lot, listener. I expect to beat everyone on my level and some above my level as I strive to become good enough to beat more above my level. And I don't have time to go through it, but it was an interesting article in The Advocate. Coach Odom was talking about why not Southern be I'm paraphrasing here, to be the first HBCU to do the training table, have a nutrition center, to have special food that needs to be cooked that for its nutrition and protein. Why not Southern University? I'll have to pull that article up for next week. Or maybe we'll hash it out during a bye week. After Memphis, all the nutrition and protein in the world would not have had Southern beating Memphis on that Saturday. But I understand what he's saying overall in the big picture. But hey, it's an FBS team. I think you did. You had a better week. No turnovers. You scored points. Your defense scored. Special teams still a work in progress. Build on that and get ready for now Edward Waters and then FCS opponents for the rest of the season. Well, minus Virginia Lynchburg, but you get my drift. That's November the 9th. But anyway. And Southern's at Jackson State November the 16th. Take a time out. Come back. Brandon B.J. Jones of HBCU Game Day is next. You're listening to the Carlos Brown Show on the Open Mic Broadcast Network at Spreaker.com.
Broadcasters come into our lives on radio and TV, bringing us information and entertainment. Broadcasters are there for us, but who is there for them when they fall on hard times? The Broadcasters Foundation of America provides financial assistance to broadcasters in acute need due to a critical illness, accident, or other serious misfortune. If you know of a broadcaster on the air or behind the scenes who may need our help, please share our message. Visit broadcastersfoundation.org.
I know that as parents, we work hard to do everything right. We baby-proof our homes, put our kids in car seats, and learn what to do in an emergency. Yet most parents don't know that children could be poisoned by lead paint in their own homes. Lead poisoning causes permanent learning and behavior disorders, and the culprit is usually dust from peeling or chipping lead paint, which goes from the children's hands right into their mouths. Keep paint in good condition in your home, daycare, and other places where your children live and play. Ask your doctor to test your child for lead poisoning and get your home tested too. For more information on how to address lead paint problems safely, call 1-800-424-LEAD. This has been a public service announcement from the Open Mic Broadcast Network.
This is Al Wash with ALW Entertainment, the promoter of the State Fair Classic, and I want y'all to keep your dial because I listen to the Open Mic Network every day. Keep the dial locked in.
Welcome back to the final segment of hour number 2 on today's Carlos Brown Show, heard exclusively right here on the Open Mic Broadcast Network and Spreaker.com. Very interesting and entertaining show in hour number 2. Now to continue with the final 13, 14 minutes of today's show is Brandon B.J. Jones of HBCU Game Day. Brandon, good morning to you, sir. Is it still morning? Where you at?
It's well, afternoon. Afternoon.
Oh, wait a minute. Eastern time? I thought it was Central time.
I'm in Atlanta, Metro Atlanta, man.
Oh, okay. Yeah. On the road again, huh?
Well, I'm actually in the process of relocating to Metro Atlanta.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah. This is going to be home. Yeah, man. Yeah.
Well, I get a chance to come there once a year for the last 4 or 5 years. Just have your nice jacket. They can get kind of nippy there during the celebration bowl time.
Yeah.
But then you've got that good young blood. See, I'm middle aged, so you know, hey. Few things to cover in about 12 or 13 minutes left. BJ, interesting set of games last week in Black college football. Some interesting games this week. Then, of course, we'll get to that top 5 poll. But I will say this. Somebody asked me, you're not upset? I thought you were going to be upset because Southern's not in anybody's polls. Say, no, it doesn't bother me. You control what you do, Southern, and you can easily get back in there. Well, going off on some winning streaks, preferably a 4 or 5 game winning streak. But anyway, just my thoughts. But last week's interesting games in black college football, wouldn't you say?
Oh, yeah, man, it was very interesting. I think a lot of teams were able to capture some people's attention. I think what Arkansas Pine Bluff did at Alabama A&M last weekend caught some eyeballs. And I think what Mississippi Valley State was able to do with Lamar, who was a playoff team in 2018, pushing them to overtime, led that ball game late. Led it late. I think that opened some eyeballs. And I think the first week, because of the way that Mississippi Valley played Tennessee State, a lot of people were ready to write off Tennessee State and Rod Reed. But what you saw a week ago was Tennessee State goes to Middle Tennessee State, had an opportunity to win that ball game late. Middle Tennessee State scores 2 touchdowns in the final 3 minutes to make the score 45-26. But that was a 31-26 ball game late in the game. So I think there were a few games across the HBCU landscape. Also, alert Alabama State has an offense. So I think there were some games across the HBCU landscape that really opened some eyes.
We talked about it in hour number 2, UAPB, and I basically said I was shocked that they scored that many points, but then if you look at UAPB against TCU, but they gave up 39 points. We know Jackson State and Southern gave up more points than that. Maybe that should have been a clue right then. Then Alabama A&M, I basically said they were who I thought they were. I mean, I know I said I was in the minority. I thought a lot of people, had crowned Alabama A&M to say they are definitely a legitimate team to take it all in the East. And I guess what I'm saying, Brandon, you tell me if I'm wrong, just slow down a bit. It's an emotional time, and then it's a long season. Just sit back. You got to win the week. And with Alabama A&M, I'm interested in mentally how this team is going to bounce back. And then UAPB with Langston. Langston is a very dangerous opponent to me.
Oh, yeah, man. With Alabama A&M, we talked about this. I feel like we talked about this whole summer. Their problems were going to be up front. I knew that offensive line was going to be a problem. I was able to see them in the spring, see them in the summer. I knew that offensive line would have some issues. What I did not expect was the defensive line and that front seven to have the problems that they're having. And the secondary isn't exactly anything to write home about. Defensively, this isn't the team that we saw a year ago. At no level. Not in the front seven, not in the secondary. Arkansas Pine Bluff pretty much had their way with Alabama and they did it on the ground, running for over 300 yards, and they did it with the pass, throwing for over 300 yards. Arkansas Pine Bluff almost racked up 700 yards of total offense on Alabama.
Amen.
And that's bad. That's something that can't happen. And then you have a quarterback. Akil Glass is averaging 347 yards per game with his arm. Imagine how many more touchdown passes he could throw if he could stay upright. I mean, it's like every time he drops back, the other man has somebody in his face. So Alabama A&M has to shore that up, or it's going to be a long season. They go to Florence tonight to play North Alabama, who gave Montana fits in the first half before Montana ran away with it. It's going to be interesting to see what they look like tonight going against a historic rival in North Alabama.
Yeah, and again, what will be you would think that they're going to want to respond after the performance last week. And then, the 21st at Sanford, September 21st. So next 2 weeks, we'll see what they're made of, how they respond to adversity.
And I agree. And the thing about it is, you and that game will tell us a lot. Sanford defensively is almost like the tunnel of love. Everybody goes in and scores, okay? Defensively, they're not good, okay? But with Sanford, they can score on anybody. They're explosive offensively. That could turn into a basketball on grass type of situation next Saturday in Birmingham.
Wow.
So it's going to be interesting to see what Alabama A&M looks like tonight. Have they improved? And because, man, I'm telling you, next Saturday down in Birmingham against Sanford, man, we might be looking at a 66-64 type of game because both of those defenses are bad.
Well, I'm going to make a mental note of that. Brandon, BJ Joe, no defense across the board. Let's see, we got about 6 minutes left. Let's move quickly. Alcorn State and McNeese, I believe you're taking Alcorn. You feel that they can get it done.
Man, I like Alcorn. I mean, I look at the way that Southern went down and played McNeese, 5 turnovers and a 6-point loss. I think Alcorn is hitting almost on all cylinders, but defensively, man, I like this Alcorn football team. I don't see McNeese moving the football on them a lot if Alcorn plays up to their potential.
Force turnovers, don't turn the ball over. Penalties to at a minimum, and I add this. I think Noah Johnson will have to throw it a little bit. He'll have to throw it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, because McNeese will load the box. They will load the box. But one of the things, if you're Alcorn, they almost got a 3-headed monster as far as running the football. Noah Johnson can run it. We know about Deshaun Waller. But there's a young freshman that stepped up. He's averaging almost 8 yards per carry. And his name is Nico Duffy, freshman from Tampa, Florida.
Same city as Noah.
Yep.
Prairie View and Nicholls State.
It's going to be an interesting ball game. I think for Prairie View, I was impressed with the way that they played Houston a week ago. If you're Prairie View, offensively, you got to be able to pass the football. They've been able to do that. Limit what Nicholls can do on the ground. Nicholls wants to run the football first. Limit what they can do on the ground. This is going to be a big test for that Prairie View defense. We talk about what the talent that Prairie View has. We talk about up front. This is going to be an up front test for Prairie View tonight against Nicholls.
Yeah, well, Lindsey Scott Jr. won't be able to play, huh? Transferred into Nicholls State. Wow. From LSU to Missouri. Sometimes in life you got to make the decision, and you think about it long term, not short term. I'll leave it at that. I'm sure I'll get some email on that. But he won't play. He'll be available to play next week for Nicholls State. But as you stated, Prairie View, A&M, and Nicholls State. SWAC and Southland. I'll have my eyeballs on both of those games. Quickly, in the MEAC, any game that we should pay special attention to?
I'm looking at North Carolina A&T going to Charleston Southern. North Carolina A&T with another opportunity to pick up one of those non-conference wins. This North Carolina A&T team looks good. South Carolina State is going down to South Florida. South Florida's struggling. And South Carolina State looks good. I think that this may be an opportunity for the MEAC to pick up one of those FBS wins with South Carolina State going down to South Florida. And also in the MEAC, you got FAMU against Fort Valley State. This is FAMU's first game since that shellacking that they took against Central Florida. How does FAMU really look, and what FAMU can we expect to see next Saturday night down in Tallahassee as the Jags come out?
Oh, they'll be ready, I believe. And you're absolutely right. In North Carolina A&T last week, humbled, played Duke, but that's playing up. They usually bounce back from losses pretty. They're pretty successful. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in those games. Your top 5, start with 5 in black college football.
So with the top 5, I got the Prairie View Panthers at number 5. At 4, I have Bethune-Cookman. At 3, I have South Carolina State. At 2, I have the Braves of Alcorn. And number 1, I got some old A&T Aggies from out of Greensboro, North Carolina.
Prairie View still holding on to that number 5 spot. I'm going to be interested to see what happens after, when we talk next Saturday. If they win, and I'm pulling for them, good job. If they lose, I guess sometimes it's how you lose.
Mm-hmm.
If it's a close game, but if they get routed or something, then I guess we'll see some movement. But either way, the polls are very interesting. Because if I knew a whole lot about them, I would be doing a poll. But I'll leave it to you guys. But I just know you have the opportunity to go in and out. It's a long football season. BJ, appreciate the time as always. We'll talk with you next Saturday. Some outstanding games to look forward to this weekend, and we'll talk about it next week.
Sir, man, looking forward to it, man. So
all right, you behave yourself in Atlanta, hot Atlanta.
Oh, man, I am, man. I'm just taking in some football games right now.
All right. Don't become a Falcons fan. Please don't.
Oh, no,
Please
I'm not.
Don't, BJ. No, don't do that. Don't do that. Or a Cowboys fan, but anyway. Appreciate the time. Have a great weekend.
All right. Thank you, Carlos.
All right. Brandon B.J. Jones of HBCU Game Day. I want to thank Dr. Prince, also Joshua Jackson of the Edward Waters College Radio Network, Carlos Leach, former Southern University football player, talking about Coach Pete Richardson, and Charles Edmond of the Alcorn State Radio Network. Everyone, you behave yourselves. Have a good time this weekend, and make sure you join me next Saturday at 10 a.m. for another edition of the Carlos Brown Show, heard exclusively right here on the Open Mic Broadcast Network and Spreaker.com. And once again, I want to thank Dr. Michael Prince. You hang in there, Dr. Prince. It's going to get better. Until that time, peace and God bless.